Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Tattoos and Toddlers. Y'all just don't even know how much fun this is for me. I was having an episode yesterday where I was just having live discussions with other creatives and other friends. And I feel like this is a new creative outlet for me. It gives me instant satisfaction. I feel like I've accomplished something during the day. And I was just telling Daniela, this feels like something that we can accomplish and put on our done list today. So I want y'all to welcome Daniela to the podcast this afternoon whenever we're recording this. And I met Daniela in Florida, and we will get into that story later. But Daniela, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniella. I live in Florida. I'm in Central Florida. I am a wedding photographer. I do other things as well, but that's my main focus. I've been in business about 20 years now, but because I have children, it hasn't always been full time. So it gets, all you see all these younger people coming in, and in 2 years they're where I am already. And I'm like, how? But, trying to balance the work life with the, regular life. And it's been really fun. So 20 years, I'm feeling pretty good. I own my own business, but then I also subcontract out to other people.
Yeah.
So it's great because you'll see me everywhere.
Yeah, and that's great because I see you everywhere. You're online. It feels like a lot. I see your work. I see you connecting with people and collaborating. I saw some familiar faces in the Florida area from when I went to that conference.
Yep,
No, but
I'm
I
everywhere.
I love this though because well, first of all, now I know how long you've been in business and we're kind of like I'm a teenager now. I'm about 17 years in, you're about 20 years in. And we both know the world has changed a lot in general, not just
Yeah,
the fact that we've had kids or family, but the photography world has changed, the way we
yep.
process information and the social media world changed, and the fact that we went from film to digital.
Yes, my first wedding was filmed, and I'm so glad I'm no longer filmed.
I
That was hard.
know. And I came on the cusp of the digital world, and I feel
Yeah.
like I was very fortunate that I could use the digital format to like express myself almost instantly.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, I
great.
used
I
to be
love it.
obsessed with 1 hour film when I was a teenager because it was that like almost instant gratification. I mean, you had to wait till you use the whole roll, but
Yeah, the one
you
hour
didn't.
was a pretty big deal back in the
It
day,
was.
y'all.
It
Just
was
gonna
like,
say
yes,
that. Kind of like the 1 hour dry cleaning. You're like, you're done in 1 hour.
yes. Loved it. Loved it.
So, I kind of want to just have a really fun conversation today with you because, well, first of all, you have 4 kids.
Mhm.
And so I imagine that over your lifetime of, I don't know when you started having kids, if your business came, obviously your business probably came first, right? Was your business first and then kids, or
It was, but it wasn't legal until my first kid. So I was learning. The first few years was definitely working under other
the more
people,
like hobbyist
the
slash
more
working under the people?
hobbyist.
Yeah.
Yes. But I say 20 years just because I had the camera in my hand and I was trying, I was learning. When my first daughter was born, is when I had to get the license and all of that stuff because I was working for another company
Yeah.
and I had to have, all my stuff in order to work for them. So that's when it technically became legal. So that's almost 18 years.
Yeah, that's amazing though, because there is a difference between being a hobbyist and then a full-blown business owner. And I think we can all
Mm-hmm.
agree on that. Every business owner listening to this podcast can understand the difference between if you're on paper versus you're just doing it for fun. And
Right.
I've met a variety of people that still love what they do, whether it's a hobby or a business. But this podcast in general is definitely about how in the world are we making it work with family and business? Are there some things that really have helped you over this long time of having kids help stay organized with, I don't know if your personality, if you're very organized with your time, or if you were like me when I first started my business, I had no idea how to manage myself. Like, how in the world do I manage myself, which is usually calendar and time? Like, what are some things that I know that you probably put into practice over the years that really help you?
So a long time ago, it was definitely a paper calendar, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
the book, like not the wall calendar, but a book, and it was the weekly and everything. Thank God Google Calendar came out because Google Calendar has saved my life.
Hmm.
I literally couldn't tell you what I'm doing next week, except for I could. I'm in Texas with you. Uh,
Yay! Get ready for
um,
a special episode for that.
but yeah, like Google Calendar, people can ask me what I'm doing next week. I don't know. I have got to pick up my phone and look at my calendar. So it's helped reduce my stress and the fact that I'm not constantly thinking about everything because I'm like, I'll just look at my calendar. Um, that has helped a lot. And in business, a lot of people are like, you have to set boundaries and take time for yourself.
Yeah.
And so in my current business frame is that I take mornings off.
Ooh.
So I don't start working until after I've had lunch, which works with my body and it works with my kids' schedules because my kids are in virtual school. So all of their classes are in the morning. And I have a just turned 5-year old, so who's not in school yet. So I take my mornings to spend with her while everybody else is doing their schoolwork. And then once they're done with their schoolwork, pretty much is when I can release the toddler into the wild. And then, because then they have older siblings to take care of them. And then I focus on my work. So I pretty much, my work hours are like 1 in the afternoon till 10 at night.
Yeah.
And I stop to dinner and do other things, but those are like, I don't take phone calls in the morning unless it's an emergency. I don't set up meetings. I don't do morning shoots. If you want a morning shoot, I will recommend you to somebody else. My body does not wake up until noon because as a wedding photographer, we're out till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, late at night. So my body is just adjusted to that schedule of being up late and not really sleeping in, but I'm definitely awake later than a lot of people.
Yeah, and you can be awake, but you're not awake.
You're not
It's
awake,
like my
right?
eyes are open, but I feel like I am not fully present until this time of day, right?
I'm not a positive functioning adult until after I've had lunch.
I'm feeling you on that because I've been that way for a really long time, even before I was a business owner, even though I had the 9 to 5 job for, I don't know, I was 10 years at least in the working world as with a 9 to 5 job. So I had to get up and do the traffic thing. I
Mm-hmm.
had to get up and drive to work. And I remember, those times of my life, you do get used to the schedule, but that doesn't mean I was awake. I was not
Right.
awake at 7 a.m.
It doesn't mean I liked it. It just means that I had to do it because I was the same way when my kids were in brick and mortar school. I was up early in the morning, got them to school. I also had a job that was pretty much 9 to 5. It was still in photography. I was working at a
Yeah.
studio. Yeah, but I don't miss it. I'm glad. It was a great experience,
Yeah.
but my body is much happier.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, when I'd had the full-time job, the only thing I missed was the constant coworkers. Like, I don't
Mm,
know if you have this happen to you. Like, it's great that we have networking meetings with other wedding pros or other photographers or whatever, but we're not always in each other's lives like every day, like in an office job. And so I struggled for a few years with this, with my husband trying to explain to him that he gets to go to work with coworkers every day,
yeah,
and that's kind of what I miss. And I don't get Christmas parties. I have to wait for
right.
the galas and all this end of year celebrations with all these associations, right?
Yeah,
That's our end of year
that's
party for the
our parties.
industry.
Yeah,
And so I was just trying to explain that to him. I said, that's one thing that I miss. And I can't make that it doesn't work when you're a small business owner. You can't, even if you're working with the same 6 people at a wedding, it's not the same as
it's not
sitting
the
down with
same.
each other and sharing coffee and getting
Yeah,
work done, but also having downtime with each other. And I kind of miss that coworker
I
aspect of my
do. I
job.
do. That's literally where I met my best friend. So my
Aw.
second shooter has been with me for 10 years because we both met working at that same office job.
Aw.
And so yeah, we're best friends. We've been through everything together. Yeah, so I do miss that because especially with the kids, like I'm talking to kids all day. Sometimes sometimes I miss that adult communication.
Yeah, and I find obviously a lot of us have opened up our worlds to the virtual world, meeting people
Yeah.
across the time and space. And I've been doing this, I realized I've been doing online chatting since college, and that was the 90s where you didn't even have a photo. You just had a computer that has green lit chat, text
Yes.
on there. And I was doing these little chat rooms even back then. And I thought to myself, why does this feel like I've been doing it forever? Oh, because I have.
We have. Yeah, one of my best friends I've never met in real life. She lives in Spokane, Washington, so other side of the state.
Oh my
And we've been
gosh.
such good friends for 20 years and we've never met still.
Oh,
Yeah.
so we need to make something like that happen. Let's all
I
go
mean,
to
I need to go there.
Washington.
Let's go. What's up there? What's up there?
There's so many cool things over there.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too, like when the pandemic year hit and we were all kind of locked in for a while, and I met a lot of people on Clubhouse, which
Mhm.
was an audio only platform. And then I started like meeting a whole bunch more wedding pros only in the last 3 years. And so it's been really fun to see the different markets we all have, to see the different states that we all live in, the different cities, the different things that we deal with. And one of the cool things about meeting you was just the fact that I had no idea what I was walking into when the assistant editor of Offbeat Wed calls us up and said, well, actually, first I called her up and I said, hey, so I'm coming to speak at this convention. Can we do a get together? Because it would only make sense. She's really close,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden she brings in you and she brings in, oh gosh, what was her name again?
It's Bertova Photography. It's
Veritova Photography. And I
what's her
was
first
like,
name?
yeah, I was like, I'm terrible with names. But
Yeah,
I
me
was like,
too.
she brings us all together to this space, and all of a sudden, we're all these offbeat, quirky, alternative photographers hanging out. And then the next minute, we know we're detailing out all these silly videos where we're creating with
It's
each other. We're
fun.
complete strangers, by the way, y'all. This is
Right.
what's
Yeah.
great. Is what I love about connecting with other business owners is that you almost instantly get each other right away. If you're any kind of a small business owner and a photographer, then you're like, have an unspoken language.
Hmm.
You
And especially the
understand.
fact that we were all photographers, except for Suki. But it was great because we all have the same problems in life. We have, even though we're from different places and our clients are a little different sometimes, it's still like the same things that we all go through.
Yeah, and I think we could relate on much creativity and a lot of laughter happening in these moments. And I think that was probably the most fun I've ever had with wedding vendors in general,
I think
is
so
just
too.
letting go, be silly, create together. And I want to see more of that. I don't know about you, but I love these little
Yeah.
small groups where we get together and have real fun, real conversation, which makes me excited for next week because I don't even know what we're going to do next week, but I'm just gonna be like, whatever, let's go do
Yeah.
nothing or something. I don't even know, but I'm just
We'll
like,
figure it out.
yeah, we do know that the eclipse is happening apparently,
Yes.
and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm in the Dallas area, so it's like we are about to have like this prime viewing location. If the clouds don't go away, we're not going to be able to see anything. I think.
We'll be there. It'll get dark in midday, so it's cool. That's cool. It's
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
thought it was really nice that, again, that I was telling you that my husband was really nice and sweet to like think about my kids' experience and how this is something that maybe a 7-year-old, even if she doesn't get to see it, she might remember this when she's like, say, my age, when I remember
Yeah.
Haley's Comet or other phenomenon that has happened over the years, that you just kind of keep in your brain. You're like, oh, here's this experience and here's this experience. Has there been anything here recently for you that's been like stuck in your mind as an experience, not just our fun time in Florida, but here recently? I know you work a lot, you do a lot of activities, I feel like. Has something kind of stood out to you recently that was kind of fun or quirky or
Um, I'm trying to think so it wasn't as great as it has been in past years. And it's not work related, it's more kid related, but we have the Orlando Science Center.
oh.
And once a year they would have like a 4-day festival over um President's Day weekend. So it's a kids are out of school on Monday, so they make it a long weekend. But they bring in a bunch of vendors from like NASA's there, normally like Boeing,
Mm.
Lockheed, Disney, all these huge vendors, colleges come. Um, and the kids not only get to have fun, but they get to learn about different work things that you can do. You can learn about different colleges and programs that they offer. Uh, Disney, I had fun just talking to the cast members and seeing where they work, where they made magic, and what they did to get there. So it's fun with the kids to be like, look at these careers,
Yeah.
because how else does a kid know what they want to do in life unless you're exposed to options? So it's really fun to see in the STEM technology, arts, sciences, things that they're able to do and things that they could work for. So I love that. I think that's amazing. And I'm thankful to all of the companies and vendors who take the time
Yeah.
to come and teach kids and show kids things. Cause I know it's a hard thing. Like we have our own kids, but imagine like hundreds of children coming through and having, and their attention spans are so short. Like, how do you get information into their brain when their attention span is like 25 seconds? So I appreciate all the people who came to that.
Yeah, and I love that because, I grew up in a completely different state. I was not born here in Texas. I don't know if you were born and raised in Florida, but like even the dynamics of Oklahoma versus Texas are so different. Like
Mhm.
what I was exposed to vocationally in Oklahoma is different than what my daughter may be exposed to here in DFW. Because my science teacher was the one who was like kind of advocating for us to have those very cool scientific experiences and ways to get things in the classroom that seemed unreachable. I mean, my
Yeah,
teacher was so cool. She went to the actual space camp, the one that was made out of the movie in the 80s. And, you go, was it Alabama? You go to Alabama and you get to get the whole full experience. And she was like that
that'd be
cool of a
so cool.
teacher.
That is awesome. Yeah.
So when she got opportunities from a local college, in the state for some of us to be chosen to go there and experience what it would be like to be in aerospace or in aviation, I was one of those kids that was fortunate enough to go experience that kind of stuff. And that's kind of immersive too. Like it's not just
Yeah.
a trade show or a fair. And I'm sure they still probably do this kind of stuff, but I just thought that was really neat that, my kid's young enough right now that we don't know what she's interested in, but she sure is
Hmm.
enjoying. She does say she enjoys math, she enjoys science class, and she enjoys art. Not gonna lie, like she comes by the art honestly. She's my kid. So
Like you have to love art.
so if she's not doing certain art, then I'm always exploring art sometimes in my own way. And then if she sees something interesting that I'm doing and I tell her, honey, I said, honey, I can't really have you work with resin right now. This is kind of like a big chemical
Kind of
issue.
toxic.
Yeah, it's a little toxic
Yeah,
and
a
you
little
gotta mix
toxic.
it and you can't touch it. And I said, maybe in a few years we'll work with resin, but right now you just have to watch mommy and back away.
Yeah.
But little things like somebody bought her a ceramic pot that she could paint yesterday, and it was for her birthday because her birthday
Yeah.
was a few days ago. And so she brought it home and she immediately wanted to paint it. Like that's just who she is. She is
Yeah.
one of those people that immediately wants to immersive into it. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm here for that. I just have to
Awesome.
make sure, just remind you that it's breakable and don't drop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Oh
mean
yeah.
that's part of our jobs as parents, right? Is even though we are sometimes like we've lived a long time and I'm like sometimes I don't want to relive everything that I've lived,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like my daughter sometimes asks me, she's like, "Well, how did you get to draw so good, mommy?" I said, "Honey, I'm 40 years older than you. That's how."
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of practice, lots of time.
Do you
Right.
find yourself with your kids? Do you find yourself being inspired by things that they're into that you were never into, or vice versa? Like they're kind of like into things you're into, or any of them into photography and arts as much as you, or.
Yeah, so my oldest took 2 years of photography in high school. Um, so that was really fun because then we could connect on it because there's a lot of things that they like that we don't really connect. And so they'll talk about it and I will listen attentively, but it's kind of going in one ear and out the other because
Yeah.
I'm not connecting. It's not clicking and I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. Um, so when they like something that I like I feel like we connect on a deeper level, and I really do love that. So my oldest doesn't really still do photography, but every now and then I'll pay them to come hold my light. So at least and I'll explain things as I'm working. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm having you do it at 3/4 here because I don't want the light coming straight here, and I want it more here, and they will understand a little bit of what I'm talking about because they've had 2 years of class. So that's really great. But yeah, some of the things like I have an 11-year-old about to be 12. Some of the things that she's into, I'm just, what? Like, I don't know. It's a different generation. But they definitely do all like art. Sometimes it feels like pulling teeth to get them to do things because they always want to be on their computer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was like that as a kid too. So I kind of, it comes honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in this really interesting generation, I feel like, that has a really good grasp on the past and a partially grip on the future of certain things, and realizing how much I enjoy my humanity aspect, but I also enjoy futuristic things too. So it's a very
Mhm.
interesting time we live in right now.
It
Um,
is.
so as we're kind of like thinking about what we're leaving people with today in these discussions and how we're navigating life. Um, Trying to think of what I was gonna say next. I'm just like spacing out, literally like spacey.
Space. We're talking about space.
I'm in outer space. Um, but yeah, so we were talking about the tattooing process too, and how you didn't have one.
I don't.
And I'm also like my daughter, whenever she expresses herself, knowing that she's only known me with pink hair, and that if I showed her my wedding photo the other day and she's like, "Who is that?" And I was like, "It's mommy." 'Cause I mean, I didn't have pink hair. She's like, "Mommy,
Yeah.
that's not you." And I said, "No, it's me."
Yeah.
But it's
Different
like,
time.
I mean, she knows. She sees all my tattoos. She sees all the things that's all over me. I am who I am with her. And I think the beautiful thing, and I know that you've got 4 kids with probably 4 different personalities and whatever, but it's like it's fascinating to me that I see so much of myself in her as I am now, not as I was as a kid. It's very interesting to me because I was super shy. I was definitely grew up differently than her. But it's nice to see her confidence start building from such a young age. And I'm wondering also, as we're working on our personal confidences, do you
Mhm.
think that in your family dynamic and in your work that your kids watch you in your work and they also have seen your confidence over the years or even since they've been alive?
I hope so, because I was also a very shy child. I was raised in a conservative household, and then my parents moved us. I was born in Florida, and at 9 years old, they moved us to West Virginia.
Oh my, I lived there too briefly.
There, there was nobody and nothing to do. And then on top of it, they decided that they were going to homeschool me.
Oh, fun.
So already nobody and nothing to do. And then I'm homeschooled. And the only outlet I had was church, which, then drove me further into the church life because that was my only out. I did end up going back to public school, but even that, my high school, like my art class was taught by a golf instructor because they didn't have an art teacher. My one science class was taught by the gym teacher because they didn't have a science teacher. He would literally just write some stuff on the blackboard and then he played Counter Strike all day. Like he didn't teach. Like that's
Wow.
right.
We have
So
so many similar things happen in our life. That's
yeah,
amazing. Like, I
I
mean,
didn't have the opportunities. I didn't have the drive, the motivation, the um like my kids are so much more lucky because they can see more people, they can see more things. Whereas in my town, you grew up and you worked either at the chicken plant or you worked at the furniture wood American Woodmark making cabinets. Like that's where you ended up. Or you went to a trade school and you worked in electrical or you fixed cars. Like that's all
yeah.
there was. So to be an artist, because I've always loved art and loved photography. I had a camera when I was little. To be that person in that town was soul crushing for so long. And then I got back here. So it ended up good, but that those are formative years. Those formative years that I lost out on. So I think my kids have it much better off because they have access to things, more education, more people, more jobs, and they can see me going out and doing things and learning new things because we're always learning. Like our
Yeah.
field isn't stagnant. We're always learning new things. So they see me they see me coming in here to do a podcast. I've never done a podcast before. So
Welcome to the podcast.
right. So they see me doing things that would normally make me anxious or nervous because I don't know, and they see me doing it. So I hope in the end that gives them, the confidence to be like, no, I've never done that before, but let's try. Let's try and see
No,
how it works.
I love that because before I had a kid, I was watching a family that really inspired me and it wasn't like they were fearless, but they just did it anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this thing as a family. And I've watched them over, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 years whenever I started my business. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to be like them, but I can take that motivation and that drive and that confidence, and I can start seeing that play out in my life too.
Yeah.
Like when I became a photographer, I didn't even know you could do it as a business. I had no idea about running a business because that was
Oh,
not modeled
yeah.
to me. I had no idea what running a business was like. Some of my family actually did run brick and mortar types of businesses, more like gas stations and other businesses and stuff.
Hmm.
But I didn't live there to witness it, the everyday life of
Yeah.
that. But I knew they were in it. I just didn't know what it was like to live that.
Well,
Um,
then, did you ever have people tell you to get a real job?
I don't think I ever did because I had the real job before
Okay.
I became an artist. So
Yeah.
if I was 10 years in the working world as an adult,
Yeah.
minimum, that's what my part of my story is. I thought that's just what was expected of you when you leave college. Or for me, I dropped out of college because I just not could not find a single thing that made sense for my life. The
Hmm.
only thing that made sense was computers, and I just ended up being a data entry queen, and you could get a job in data entry, no
Oh,
problem.
yeah.
As long
Oh,
as you were
I had a
fast
job
enough,
there. Yep.
fast and accurate, that's all you needed to do.
Yeah.
And I worked a lot of different companies, a lot of different types of jobs, but it was all data entry, and it was very less people related versus data, and it was just very computer related versus customer service kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But again, it was still out of my comfort zone, believe it or not, because getting on the phone with a customer, I was like, oh God, I've got to talk to a customer.
I'm still like that. like, like I was telling you earlier, like if somebody tries to call me out of the blue, like without scheduling it and me knowing what we're about to talk about, like I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Can't do it, won't do
Can't
it.
do it.
But I
Nope.
love I love that you shared a little bit of your past with me because I just feel like we relate so much on the upbringing, the small town. I had like 19 in my graduating class, but I would not take that back for an instant because those 3 years in that high school were probably the best thing that had happened to me as a young person because I needed stability.
Mm.
But I knew I wasn't meant for the small town life. There's a difference.
Right?
So
Yeah.
it's like, when you grow up in a place, and I say grow up loosely because my husband grew up in one town his whole life, but he even like knew there was much more opportunity out there. And I think if the small town, thankfully, I was exposed to enough, what we're talking about with our kids being exposed to enough opportunity and exploration
Mm.
of ideas, then you figure out, well, I'm not meant for this life. I'm going to go pursue this. And I think that's
Yeah.
great. I think it's great if people know where they're supposed to be at whatever age they discover where they want to go with their lives. I think it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
And the
Yeah,
fact that
again,
they don't have to stay there. Like
yeah, you can make some decisions
you
that take
can,
you to other places.
yeah, you can.
Yeah, and I think that's great. So yeah, we'll have to talk more about that next week. I'm so curious to hear more about that. So I want to get back to like our non-tattoo story because as we're starting to wrap up the conversation, and I wanted to be sure to leave enough time for that. Because you were telling me, and mind you, tattooing for me started back in the 90s in college. I can't see half of them. So if they were faded, I wouldn't know. Um, and every once in a while, I'll just look in the mirror and be like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Um, but I loved your reasoning for the thought process behind why you haven't got one yet. So kind of share it with people, like, why don't you have a tattoo?
Okay. So first off, it does start with my conservative Christian upbringing.
Yeah.
Those were not allowed. So my whole life was drilled into me that's not allowed. And then, I grew up, moved out, all that fun stuff. And I love it because I love art and I love looking at people's, and I love when they do have stories. I know
Yeah.
some are just for fun, but some
Yeah.
people like it has deep meaning and I love listening to people's stories. But for me, that permanence is so scary. And it's so funny to say that because I'm married and I have 4 children. Those are all commitments. But that commitment with the ink is like I have piercings. I had a nose piercing. Those you can take out, they heal up.
Yep.
It's forever. And not only is it forever, but I've seen some not so great tattoos and then they fade and they like not only do they fade, they like grow, like they
Just depending
expand
on your
and
skin. Yeah.
depending on your skin. And I'm just like, I don't like if it wasn't perfect, I would die. Like if I don't know. Like, I guess if I was on my back and I couldn't see it, but then for me, what's the point of getting it if I can't see it? I want to be able to see the art every
And
day.
that was
So
the reverse for me. I was fine never seeing everything. I was fine. Just put it
good.
on my body. I'll look at it whenever I want to.
Yeah.
That's until I got the ones on more of my arms, right? So
But I've designed them like for
yeah.
myself. Like I want to get this and I want to get it here. And I've had tons of ideas and I'm not afraid of the pain. So it's not that like needles, I'm fine with needles. It's just that fear of permanence and that fear of it fading.
I think it's a very legit reason. And that's why I wanted you to share that. Because I was like,
Yeah.
just because this is called Tattoos and Toddlers does not mean there's always tattoos or toddlers on this podcast. I just feel like I needed a space to just be who I am, have real
Yeah.
conversations. And thank you again, Daniela, for coming on to just sit with
So
me and have a real conversation.
thanks for having me. This was fun.
So, as we round out today, I kind of want to leave something with somebody today. It's something inspirational, encouraging. Maybe somebody's going through some stuff this week, and maybe we can just leave them with something today about, let's see, what would I leave? I would leave that it doesn't matter how you grew up and where you came from, but the fact of the matter is you can make a choice to move your life in a direction that really gives you fulfillment and purpose. That's what I'll leave y'all with today. And Daniela, what would you like to leave with our listeners today?
I would love to tell people that no matter what the expectations that other people put on you, you don't have to live up to their expectations. You need to live up to your own expectations and you need to give yourself grace because there's so many days where I want to accomplish things and I see other people doing things and I want to do that. But sometimes my body can't handle it or my life situation can't pursue that right now. Who knows? Maybe in the future I might be able to. But we have to set expectations for ourselves and we have to give ourselves grace.
I love it. Thank you so much again for
You're
being my guest
welcome.
today. I'm so glad this could be your first podcast
I
ever.
know. Check that off my list.
Well, it's good to see you again. And
You.
until next time, everyone, I
Yeah.
will see y'all in the next episode of Tattoos and Toddlers. Bye for now.
Bye.